Hey guys, and welcome back to another Unfiltered Gamer board card game review. Today's game up at the tabletop is called Labyrinth by Labyrinth Adventures. It's made by Chris Zimmerman and artwork by Ryan Schmidt. This is a second edition version of the game. We'll be talking about this, which is basically a GM-less RPG, which is also kind of a dungeon crawler. Kind of reminds me of Gauntlet, the old arcade game which you're playing. You're going to be using the basic roll styles for RPG, but with a 6-sided die, and also you'll be using different templates that you're going to be doing throughout the game. There's different campaign modes and whatnot. We'll be discussing a little bit of all of them, but mainly we're going to be talking about A Dead Awakening. This is the campaign quest that goes with the rulebook itself, which is all you need to play the game, and everything inside is included. You're going to be rolling dice, creating corridors, opening up different rooms, opening up different doors, having different events pop up, and fighting monsters, gaining treasure, and using a whole bunch of 6-sided die to gain different things throughout the game. But anyway, that's the basic idea of the game. However, there are a ton of books for this. So let me go ahead and show you what they are and talk a little bit about each of them. So here we have all the books for Labyrinth, which includes the rule book. There's the Realm Keeper Part 1 and Part 2. We got the Magic of Avendavara and the Horn of, I can't even pronounce that one, A Dead Awakening, Enter the Labyrinth, and the Goblin Commander. These are all quest booklets that will go with the main rulebook of the game. All you need to play though is this rulebook and any of these different quests. When you look inside the rulebook, you'll notice that it's going to have the basic content supplied along with the different things you'll be using. So this is the Druid and the Rogue, the Warrior and the Wizard, and then it'll tell you all about how to go through the dungeon, all the different scenarios throughout it. There's spells that are going to become included, along with a bunch of power-ups. You're going to have monster tables, bestiaries that you're going to be using. There's armor tables and bonus armor tables, potion tables and whatnot, magic items, a whole bunch of stuff that'll detail it. And these right here is the bestiary, tells you all the different monsters you're going to be fighting, dragons, spiders, minotaurs, anything you'd see in a Labyrinth or in the game. The games, those old RPG games that you're fighting with your friends, you're going to be seeing as well. Gauntlet, Red Dragon, Saber-Tooth Tiger. There's a good amount of monsters here all on its own. But yeah, this is the basic idea. It's going to come with the rules, and I'll explain that in a little bit. These here are other quests that you're going to be going through. I'm going to talk about mainly the Dead Awakening, so I'll save that for a second. Enter the Labyrinth was the one we first started with, which is going to give you a basic idea of the different grids you'll be using for the Labyrinth and how they all have different starts and endings, as well as the starting levels for each of the different areas, what you do and your objectives and whatnot. And I think most of them come with their own little bestiary and stuff like that, depending on what monsters you're fighting. Some of them come with bosses, and they all come with little extra pages. And so this is like 25% of the rules on one of these guys here, whereas the main booklet is going to have 75%. You'll see here's the Goblin Commander, and you can see all the artwork on here. It's really nice artwork for a basic pen and paper style RPG game. Now, as you'll notice, and look at that, that's cool too. As you'll notice too, I've gone ahead and put these guys through my little, oh, I don't know what to call it. I've made it so that you can draw over and over on them again using something like this here, a little tool here, which is pretty nice. So you can just kind of erase it. You don't have to. You can play with pen or paper. It's up to you. But I think it's find it nice to be able to erase and whatnot. This is typically what you're going to see a dungeon look like at the end of one of your different levels. So this right here is the Haunted Forest from Dead Awakening. There's also multiple ones here. This is the Krogothian City Ruins, and so on and so forth. I'll be using one of these grids in a little bit to show you how to roll, how to enter corridors, how to find rooms, and how to try and find the objective and whatnot. So we'll just be using one of these, I suppose. But these here are the different characters you'll be getting throughout the game and how you'll be setting them up, their equipment, the notes you'll be using, inventory, spells, how much weight they can carry, their attack, their gold value, food keys, and all this other stuff. It's a basic simplified version of what you normally see in an RPG like D&D or Pathfinder, but it's simplified down to just simply rolling a bunch of different D6s. Now, I strongly recommend you get a bunch of different colors of D6s, because when you roll them, you're going to need to take note which ones are which. Very, very useful. But this is mainly the content you're going to be getting in the game, and I suggest you go ahead and do a couple little things that I've done. That way it makes it very nice and replayable. Let's talk about how the game works on a basic level, as well as talking about specifically the Enter the Labyrinth and the Dead Awakening quest lines. So now you know the contents and a little bit of how to play. I'm going to explain a little more detail here before we get into the actual rolling of the dice. So we'll talk about this one here, the Dead Awakening, and how it works. So you have a start location down here, and then up here somewhere you're going to find an objective. As you can see, we kind of went even farther than we actually needed to throughout the game, because there's extra spot stuff when we actually got here. But once you go from here to here, you can go on and traverse to the next level. However, you don't have to if you don't want to. And after your party gets an equivalent of a certain amount of of gold. Monsters on the next level will level up even more, so we get some even more tougher depending on how well you do it before level. So you can choose to go without getting anything, just rush it, and the monsters will be a little harder, or you can choose to stay here and farm, and the monsters will get even tougher, and that's kind of how it works. But it's pretty simple when you're moving. You're going to first be rolling 2 die to determine the direction, left, right, up, or down, and then you roll 1 die to determine how many spaces. So when you start on the start, if you rolled 2 die and it was okay, you went forward, you would move forward based on the 3rd die roll. So having these 2 different color dies is very important. One is for direction, and one is for the amount of movement you're going to be partaking in. Sometimes when you roll on these 2-sided die, I think it's a 2, 3, or 4, and then like a 10, 11, 12, something like that, the more unoften ones or infrequent numbers, you're going to actually roll rooms. And in which case you're going to be rolling the dice to determine the occupancy, what is going to be in the room as far as items and treasures and all that good stuff, and how the kind of monsters you're going to be fighting. And after you fight the monsters, you're going to be rolling to determine what loot they drop, as well as any other special stuff you might be getting throughout the game. And then you're going to progress again. You roll the 2 dice along with the 3rd one and moving along the labyrinth, and you're trying to get to this specific area here. Now, if you are having a little bit of trouble, obviously there are certain things you can do, like creating the different rooms and having the different doors that will unlock throughout the room. Sometimes you're getting a locked door or a trap door and all these other good things. And you have special powers too as a wizard. You're going to be able to open up, create your own unique doors and other things that actually influence the map itself, which is pretty unique as well. So let me go ahead and show you a little bit about how the rolls work and how you'll be moving throughout the labyrinth on one of my other grids, and the objective, and maybe even a boss fight as well, before we talk about the Dead Awakening and a couple of extra little things like the big boss you fight at the end of the game. Okay, so we're going to talk about the base game and how base movement works. There's different kinds of quests, and especially like condensed rooms, as well as the boss fighting, or even this one over here, this ruined city. They all have their own unique way of moving, but for the basic idea, you're simply going to take these 2 die along with this 3rd die, and you're going to look over here. This is the passage roll. There's traps, how big the room is, how many doors there are, and if the room has any occupancies. Over here tells you how to draw certain things. For instance, rooms of a 4-square room shows you here, or starting over here. So we're going to be focusing on this one here. This is not going to be part of Dead Awakening. Just pretend like this is a basic game, and we're going to pick one of these doors here. So we'll go ahead and pick this one right here, because why not? And you can always come back to doors if you have to, or if the passage gets blocked and whatnot. So we'll start. So okay, how about we will go, okay, a passage roll. You take the 2 white die and you roll them, and we got a 5 and a 3. You'll look over here, that's 8, and it says the passage will turn right. So we now know the passage is going to go right. How many spaces are going to go right? And we got 2. So it will go 1 and 2, turning right. Okay, well, after that, we would then say, okay, we don't need to do a room or a trap or anything like that, or doors, or occupancy, so we would continue to roll. So once again, we'll roll again. This is a 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, and it says the passage will turn right once again, and just like that, it will turn right, so we're going that way, and it's going to go 5 spaces, 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5, so we go that way, and we keep rolling. There's another 8, and this one says the passage turns right again. So it would get blocked off like that, I suppose. And because it got blocked off, we were going to, it hits a wall. So we had to come back and pick a new door, basically. So we would choose this door over here, and we would roll once again. Now we got a 3. A 3 says it's an unlocked door. So we would then say, okay, what's an unlocked door? Is there a trap or not? So we're going to roll this die here. And it says 1 is a trap, and 2 or 6 is not, so it's not trapped. And then we say, okay, how big is the room size? And it's a 2d6s, so we roll that. So there is 9 sizes to the room, and you're going to make the room yourself. So you'd say, okay, 9. So 1, 2, 3. This is 6, and then we'll do 7, 8, and 9. So now you got a 9 squared off room, and it's an unlocked door, which is pretty cool. How many exits are there? So you roll 1d6, and you determine 4 minus 1, and that would give you 3 doors, and you will choose the doors you want for the room. Maybe 1 right here if you want to get out of the exit, which is over here. This is the objective over here. And maybe 2, and then 3 over there. After that, you see if there's anything in the room. So you're going to go ahead and roll the 2, it says roll 2d6, roll those 2, and that's going to give us 4. It says the roll once for the treasure table. So that means there's no monsters in the room. It's just going to be treasures. And in the book, if we go, I'll show you what the treasures look like. So we're on the treasury table, and as you can see, it's a 1d6, so we're just going to take one die and determine what's going to be in the room. We rolled a 1, which means it's on the weapons table. Now, on these pages, it'll tell you the weapons and armor and all the other stuff, the potions. So right here, nice and easy, 1d6. Okay, what's in it? So a 2, which means there's a sword. Well, does the weapon have a bonus? So we'll go ahead and roll 1d6. And 2 has no bonus. It doesn't have a bonus for its attack roll. 5, so it does a -1 on the attack roll, so it's easier to hit, which means now you're going to get that sword and you're going to add any bonuses to it, and you can pick that up, especially because there's nothing in the room. If there was stuff in the room like monsters and whatnot, you have to fight them first. But you put that on one of your character sheets, so maybe the warrior want to use that item. You could put it in his equipment, or you could put it in his inventory. So it's up to you based on what he wants to use and whatnot. Because he has specific things he can use. He can only use a certain amount of two-hand weapons or 2 one-handers. Some of them will only use wands and whatnot. But yeah, so this is basically the chart here. If we were to roll something else, like maybe I were to have rolled the armor table, I would do the same thing. It would say, okay, you're going to roll 1d6, and you're going to get, okay, a small shield or a leather or a plate armor for 6. And then you got the bonuses as well, and then the potions table, and then it tells you what all the potions do and how you can use them. You got scrolls as well, scroll of death, the conjure beasts, the magic items table, and all that other good stuff that you'll be going through. Once you've done that, then you're going to choose a door on the dungeon, and you're going to continue. So we would go back to this mapping area over here. You'd roll the die. If I'll choose this door here. Okay, you got a 7. 7 goes straight. And how far does it go straight? 4 spaces. 1, so 1, 2, 3, and 4. All right, let's keep going, right? And then you just keep doing that. So now it's a 9. Passage is going to turn right, and it's going to go 5 spaces. 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. And we're trying to get to here. And once we get to here, we can get to the next level. And so monsters are going to spawn eventually. So if I got another room here, and maybe it was, I don't know, we'll say that it was 8 in size. Sometimes if it's trapped, you have to try and pick it, or you can take damage. There's a bunch of other stuff. But let's say that we rolled, let's see here, roll 1 from the beast table and 1 from the treasury table. So if we roll a 5 here, we have to fight a monster in the beast table. And the beast table is somewhere down here. And you would have to pick, let's see if I can find it really quick. You have to see what monsters you're going to be fighting. Here's the beast area over here, and here's the beast table right here. So you would roll 1d6, 5, which means you're going to be on table 3. Table 3, you would go ahead and roll 1d6, and you're going to be fighting a black slime. Black slimes are scary. And you can go ahead and see actually in here where the black slime is. It's right here. It tells you the health, the dexterity, and the attack of it, and any special rules regarding it. And then you go into the fighting sequence of the game. So attacking is pretty unique in this game. Basically what's going to happen is once you've gone ahead and rolled that monster chart and figured out what monster you're going to be fighting, or monsters, and how many of each type. So you could be fighting minotaurs and spiders, or ghosts and skeletons. It's kind of depending on what you're going to be rolling. But once you've done that, then you're going to go into combat, and it's going to be initiative based, and you're going to have your character slotted from 2 to 6 depending on the slowest to fastest initiative, as well as placing monsters in. You're going to be rolling a d6 and putting them in per type of monster. So if minotaurs rolled a 1, they would be in the slot 1, and then if you had like the goblins roll 4, then they'd be in slot 4, and your character that would be in slot 4 would actually go to 5. So characters are always going to be faster than the monsters. After that occurs, then you're going to roll 3d6, and if you get equal to or less than your initiative, you'll get to attack. And attacking is based on the number of items you have or what spell you're using, and you can choose. If you want to be a wizard, you can use a spell, but you have to have that scroll in your hand, or unless you already have that basic fireball spell. And once you've used the scroll, it'll take a turn to reuse it, to get a new scroll and pick it back up. But if you're just using a basic hand weapon, you would roll maybe 1d6 for a basic dagger, and do that damage to the monster. Also, the monsters work the same way as well. They're going to be rolling d6, and they're going to try and get to equal or less than their dexterity. And then every player is going to roll a die. Or if you're playing by yourself, you would just pick 4 different types of die. So that's why I have the white, red, blue, and black. I would assign it to the characters. I'd roll the dice, and then whoever rolled the lowest would be the one that would be taking damage. If they rolled a tie, you would roll those 2 again to determine. So sometimes you can get unlucky and get that rogue getting hit multiple times. After that, if you have either fleed from the battle, or if you have all died, which means the game's over, or if you've killed all the monsters, that's how the battle will end. And mainly it's going to be monsters are going to die, at least hopefully, right? And so you're going to be rolling 1d6 per monster to get a different value of gold, as well as any treasures and loot you would have in the room. You pick that up, and you would continue throughout the game. Once you get to the objective, depending on what it is, you would possibly either win the game or compete against a monster or a boss, or you get to go to the next level. And after that, which is an interesting aspect of when you get to the next level, all monsters are going to upgrade depending on the amount of gold you've gotten. You're going to distribute gold equally among all the different players, and you're also going to be increasing the monster value of everybody depending on the amount of gold you had, plus the level you're fighting at. And so that's the idea of the game. But let me show you a couple other scenarios in which things change and are rolled a little differently. So let's talk about a different aspect of the game. This one here, the Kagarthian City Ruins, which is level 2 on Dead Awakening, which is just one of the different quest modules, has a very unique way of rolling and encountering monsters, as well as how to get different treasures and whatnot. Here, as you can see, there's a lot of story throughout the game, which tells you what happens and gives you that whole story module with a bunch of little artwork detailed here. But you would take this over here and put it here, and there's going to be tables. So the first thing we're going to be focusing on is how you roll. First of all, very, very simple. You roll a die to see how far you move, 2, and you roll to see whether or not you're going to be fighting monsters. That says a 3. Over here it tells you whether you fight an encounter or not. So random encounter is 1 or 2, no encounter is a 3 or 6. So no encounter for this one. You would also then go ahead and move your 2 spaces. And spaces can be moved however you would like in this version of the game. Here we go, 1 and a 4, so no problem. And as you continue to roll, so you got 2 spaces, and then you have to fight a monster. And fighting monsters would work the same way in any other version of the game. And so if this would be like the monster space here, I suppose, and you'd fight them, and you can gain gold and whatnot, but you would continue rolling. And the idea is, eventually you're going to come across, and these are little openings here, one of these X's here. And on these X's is, when you travel on them, you get to roll a D6. And when you roll a D6, that's going to have different tables here. You've got the blacksmith shop and dry goods, and the inn, there's the alchemist, and some of them are labeled, others are just basic slots. These are all the basic areas, and this tells you what type of person it is. The blacksmith is over here is the alchemist, right? And this is the objective of the game, and you're just going to go around making dots, trying to go where you want to go. The longer you stay in here, the more likely you're going to be fighting random encounters, and also the more likely you're going to be getting different spaces here and getting good stuff. So maybe you want to come in here and get this guy here. Ooh, that's a good one. And you're going to keep going until eventually you end up going to the objective space, but you have to go through all these little doors and whatnot. And bam! And then you go to the next location. But yeah, so new interesting little way of rolling just the 2 dice here and getting to move wherever you want. It's nice and freeing. However, the chance of encountering enemies is pretty quick, and this little aspect is a really unique little addition to the game. So I gave you a little piece of all the different puzzles that you can be acquiring throughout the game. There's a couple other unique aspects to the game for rolling. Like for instance, some of these areas here are going to be where you have to only roll the movement die, the directional die. You have to go 1 space at a time for smaller condensed areas of the board. But also for Dead Awakening, there's bosses, and this one here is the lair of the undead one. As you can see, that big O is the objective. You'll see it in the back of the books. All the books have their own unique different grids here that you can pull out and photocopy or whatever you want to do, as well as every single little quest and level module, and tells you a little bit of storyline for each of them as well. Here you have the final battle and tells you who the boss is and his HP and dexterity and whatnot, as well as any bonuses he gets for the players. Depending on how powerful the players are, this guy will also increase as well, which you can look up in the rules how that works. And it tells you roll a d6 for how many monsters he's going to be fighting with, minions and whatnot. So this has a little aspect of an additional ultra mega boss. But like I said, there's a ton of different modules I didn't really talk about, like the Goblin Commanders, and then you got the Realm Keepers, which is 1 and 2 of it. So there's plenty of gameplay all in these all in these condensed little books here. That's all you need to play the game for a 4-player, or really as many players as you want, game of Labyrinth. Alright, well that's the basic idea of the game. Hope you understand it. Let me tell you what I think about it. Labyrinth's a pretty interesting type of RPG. Normally I don't cover RPGs on this channel because they're pretty lengthy and they're hard for me to review specifically because it's hard to be objective on them. You really have to put it into your mind the concept of how the game's supposed to work, and really it's the GM who's going to be so important and integral to a campaign. If you have a good GM, in general, the game's going to work well, even if the game itself is not very functionable, and because of that it makes it difficult for me to judge, because I can say I had a great time playing this RPG, however, the RPG itself's not good, but I still had a lot of fun because my GM was good. But this, in Labyrinth, there's no GMs in the game. You're simply going to be rolling. It has that feel of of Gauntlet, Dark Legacy, and those other kind of games where you're playing in the arcade, in which you're going to be rolling. So it even says no GM, no game master needed in it, because you're simply going to be rolling dice. The dice does it all for you. However, if you want, you can include the GM, which can make the experience a little more satisfying, I suppose. You're going to be going through different portions. You can even have the GM move to show you where you're going to be moving. Oh, your character goes this far, and okay, what's in the dungeon? The GM will roll and be like, there's a bunch of spiders, and so you can have that aspect as well. But it's a simple roll and move and write. It only requires D6s and just a bunch of different colors of them. It requires maybe a pen or a pencil, and then you can photocopies of these sheets. You can use them, reuse them like I did by going ahead and putting this little screening over it, or not. And then you have the 4 different basic characters: rogue, warrior, druid, and a mage, as well as just the basic. It's like the easiest roll to move, easiest roll that you make your character I've seen in a long time. But nevertheless, it's fun. When I first started playing this, I'm like, is that it? But as I continued playing, I'm like, oh, wow, there's a lot of different things that can happen just based on these D6, because there's a ton of tables in this game. There's a ton of potions and all these kind of things. I didn't even discuss all the mage abilities you get to start with, the druid abilities, as well as, like I said, the rogue can picklock things or break traps. The mage is able to make your own unique doors. So if you're not getting to the spot you want to get to because the caverns aren't going the way you want, you can make them yourself. The bosses can be fairly challenging, especially the last boss in the Dead Awakening. I didn't play all the books, so I can't tell you about all of them, but the artwork, I can say, is pretty cool. If you like the style of, it has that Dungeons and Dragons style artwork. You've got the fantasy feel from the Realm Master. You got a nice little forest elf here as well. Yeah, it's pretty cool. There's artwork throughout the game, and there's also storyline throughout the game. So even if you're playing all by yourself, it really works. You'll get to experience the story of the game and leveling up your characters. It also reminds me kind of like one of those games you'd play on the computer that kind of gives you that RPG experience, where you open the door and here they are. Okay, it randomizes the rolls and whatnot. There is luck based in it, obviously, as to where you're going to be rolling and what you're going to be fighting. All at the same time, there is a lot of skill based how do you make your characters. At what point do you want to enter a trap door? What trap point do you want to fight a certain monster? Do you want to flee? Do you want to not flee? All at the same time of making the monsters more difficult as you progress, so it makes it nice and easy. There's a couple things I could say about the game. First of all, if you don't like these style RPG games, or if you're an RPGer that doesn't like games without a GM, probably not going to like this one as much. But like I said, you could add it. If you don't like grid-based combat and making your own, drawing your own thing, because it kind of feels like you're making your own game, you might not like it as well. And it's more based on pen and paper than anything else, right? You're not going to be able to add anything like miniatures or something like that. That doesn't work in this game. It's more of just a simple roll and write game. You could play it pretty much anywhere, and you could make up your own grids as well. You could probably even make up your own quest campaign if you really wanted to. It wouldn't be very difficult, provided you had the basic book and the bestiary and all that kind of stuff. Overall, though, the game's really fun, very, very enjoyable. I think that what they should do is probably add more gold, because the more gold you get, the more likely the monsters will get stronger, but you'll be able to do skill ups, and basically gold is the equivalent of experience. So if you don't have enough gold advancing, you're not going to be able to advance all your characters, because gold is split throughout every single level. And those skill ups make things more entertaining, so doubling or even tripling the gold count would be pretty cool, considering it's not going to hurt anything, because the monsters get stronger as you go throughout the game, which means you don't have to lollygag by farming on the same dungeon tile. That was the one thing we didn't like, was having to go back and, okay, we have to go back because we want to at least give everybody a skill up. But you can kind of change the rules on that as well. We actually, like last time we played, we were just like, you know what, double the gold count, and it made it a lot easier. Overall, though, if you're interested in this game, check it out. I really enjoyed it. I'm not a big RPGer myself, but this is something I could definitely sit down with just me, my cameraman, and have a good time playing a quick hack-em, slash-em game of Gauntlet, Labyrinth. Enter the Labyrinth quest, all these Realm Masters, as well as just the base game with Dead Awakening. This is probably my favorite module of the bunch. Alright guys, thanks for watching another Unfiltered Gamer board card game review. If you enjoyed this video, go ahead and check out the rest of the videos on YouTube. Like, subscribe, and comment. It all helps. I appreciate it as much as possible. Also, go ahead and check out Labyrinth, as well as the base and all the quest modules. It's a pretty cool little non-RPG dungeon crawler. If you're interested in that, go ahead and look it up. Also, go ahead and check out our affiliate sites, everythingboardgames.com and the Giveaway Geek, as well as my own site, unfilteredgamer.com. We've got tons of blog posts, giveaways, Kickstarter lists, and more. Alright guys, that's all I got for this one, and I hope you had a really happy new year, and looking forward to this new year, and I look forward to seeing you guys next time.